John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits from up high and low. Cinema classics on.
This special edition of Cinema Classics celebrates Ohio Goes to the Movies, a signature event of America 250 Ohio, and is co-produced by John DeSando and Mary Yerina, and hosted by Mary Yerina. Listen to shows Thursdays at 8:01 p.m. on WCBE 90.5 FM, and listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm Mary Yerina.
I'm David Weaver.
And this is Cinema Classics. David, I'm so glad you could join me to kick off this special series because we're talking about a film that has very strong connections to Columbus, Ohio. Could you tell us about it?
Yes, indeed. Lee Daniels, the formal title, The Butler, or most people just say The Butler,
True.
is a 2013 film and is actually inspired by, I wouldn't say it's based on, it's inspired by a true life story that was written by Columbus native Will Haygood. At the time, in 2008, he was on the Obama campaign trail, and he wanted to find the story of someone who had been an actual member of the domestic staff at the White House.
Which was predominantly black.
Yes, which was predominantly African American, and so he actually found someone just a few days before the 2008 election, and the result was that he wrote A Butler Well Served by the 2008 election, and that was the story of Eugene Allen, who was a real-life butler from 1952 to 1986, from Truman to Ronald Reagan in the White House, and it was an immediate struck a chord with people, and it was almost immediately accession to be a motion picture, which ended up being directed by Lee Daniels in 2013.
And the film was actually adapted, as we said, from an article, but this did lead to Will Haygood writing a book about Eugene Allen's life. How does the story that you read in the inspiring article relate to the movie? Are they identical? Are they similar? How inspired by is Lee Daniels The Butler?
Well, actually, like I said, because again, it's a fictional telling. It's not a biographical film, which is one of the reasons why, when the film came out at the very same time, Will released a full-length book called The Butler: A Witness to History, and that was actually the true life story of Eugene Allen, his wife Helene, and their experiences and life in Washington, D.C. during the time that he was the butler. Ultimately become the maitre d', which was the top position at the White House. And so Will's book actually, if you want to know if you want to enjoy the experience to the fullest, you should watch the movie and then read the book, because
Well, we certainly hope our listeners will watch the movie. One thing that I found surprising about the film, and I don't know if you did as well, is as I watched it, it certainly reveals the complexities and challenges of the arc of this man's life during the 20th century and the politics behind the scenes with regards to the civil rights movement. But at its heart, it's really focused on the father, Cecil Gaines, played by the wonderful Forrest Whitaker, who his performance alone, I think, is worth seeing the film. But and his oldest son, Louis Gaines, played by Daniel, and I can never pronounce his name.
Oyalowo, I believe it is, yes.
Well, good. Thank you for doing that. But that's really what becomes the focus, because you have this intergenerational conflict over the arc of their lives, where the son has become an activist, the father is a career domestic servant, and how they clash during this time in U.S. history of the civil rights movement. How did you feel about that?
I felt that that was exactly as you were saying, about the fact, that here was a man, both in the case of Eugene Allen, the real life man, and Cecil Gaines, the fictional character, where they were born at the height of Jim Crow. And so the world that they grow up in is, as Cecil Gaines's father tells him, when his mother is taken away by the white plantation owner,
Still in 1920.
Yes,
this is
in the 1920s. In 1926, the film begins, and the fact is, the son is outraged that this white man is taking his mother, into the barn, and his father stops him and says, "Remember, it's his world. We just live in it." And that is very much the experience, that Cecil Gaines has in this film, that as he comes up, and obviously at that time, the role of a domestic, of a butler, was a rather prestigious role to be able to have, especially if you got into something like a wealthy family, or to a major hotel. Yes.
Or the White House. Ultimately.
Yes, or the White House, yes. And in fact, Cecil Gaines ends up, a very small but critical role in the film is played by the wonderful Clarence Williams III.
Yes, all too brief.
Yes, as Maynard, who actually starts Cecil, pretty much on the path, and is offered a job at the Hotel Excelsior, which is one of the great hotels in Washington, D.C. And Maynard, though, does not want to go because, he's lived in North Carolina so long he doesn't want to go, but he says he recommended Cecil for the job. And so Cecil gets it, and that is his first position. He rises high there, and he's overheard by someone who is in charge of the program at the White House. And so that person then taps him to come to work at the White House.
Yeah, he has quite a journey in the film, and through that journey, the one thing that I would say is I had to remind myself that the portrayal of how bad blacks were treated in this country, he sees and experiences a lot of things, from the death of his father to seeing lynched men, I think they were men, on his journey. And just the general, and the other subtle ways in which he was treated. And then we have his son, who's an activist, who ends up becoming part of the Black Panthers, and what he experiences with the freedom rides and the attacks at the Woolworth dining bar, where they sat in the non-colored section. I mean, there's just a lot of brutality that's portrayed in the film, and I had to remind myself, even though I thought in the context of the film it was very in your face, and not subtle at all in terms of the story arc, it had to be 10 times worse in real life than what was portrayed in the film. So I really appreciated that backdrop, although I'm not sure all of it was needed. The one part of the film that, and this is a film, you brought up Clarence Williams III. There are so many well-known actors and stars in this film. Oprah plays Cecil's wife, Gloria Gaines, and we have just a parade of stars playing the
5 Oscar winners. I went through it and I thought, oh my gosh, and I went, I mean, Vanessa Redgrave, Cuba Gooding Jr., Jane Fonda, obviously Forrest Whitaker, and I guess
Robin Williams.
Yes, Robin Williams
as Eisenhower, and this was one of his last films.
Yes,
Alan Rickman plays Ronald Reagan to Jane Fonda's Nancy Reagan, and it's fun almost seeing who pops up in the film, but they're all high quality actors, and I thought all of them played their roles extremely well.
Yes, And like you said, some of them were very brief. I mean, Vanessa Redgrave's part, Mariah Carey really doesn't even
I didn't
say
even
anything.
recognize
Yeah.
Mariah Carey.
Yes.
She's at the very beginning of the film and plays Cecil's mother.
Yes, and so it was kind of, it was, actually, I had not known, I actually had to look up the term because one of the things is, it had been so long, I thought, I want to see what some of the other contemporaries said about things like that, and I saw a term which I wasn't familiar with, you might be, you and John, and that is stunt casting. Where you grab somebody, who is a well-known person, and you put them in a very short part and everything just because of their star power. And but the thing was, it might have been stunt casting, which again, now I know what that is, but the people I thought were all excellent in their parts.
It's an excellent cast. And the one that kind of threw me off, because I almost thought it was played for comic effect, was John Cusack as
Yes.
Richard Nixon, because he's constantly sweating, like in
Yes.
the whole film, in his short scenes.
Yes.
And
Swatting the fly away.
swatting the fly away and constantly sweating, and it almost was comedic.
Yes.
And then I had to think about, well, how old was Richard Nixon? And he was very well known for sweating.
Yes.
When this was done, and really the age was pretty appropriate.
Yes.
Between John Cusack and Richard Nixon at that time. So, is there anything else you'd like to share about this film before we?
Well, you mentioned about the Freeman. One of the things that I thought was very interesting as a juxtaposition was the scene where Cecil Gaines and the other butlers are all preparing for an elaborate state dinner, the elaborate preparations. At the same time, they cut away to his son at the counter at the Woolworths. And I thought, okay, so here's this elegant state dinner, and then here is his son and his friends and colleagues and everything, trying to be served at a lunch counter. I thought that was a very interesting juxtaposition.
Well, and I think that was part of the goal of Lee Daniels and the screenwriter Danny Strong, was they wanted to focus on the civil rights, but they also wanted to provide this context of Cecil's life against that backdrop, and just the dichotomy and complexity that brought not only to his life but to his family's life, and particularly his relationship with his son. The one criticism I would have of the film is I thought Terrence Howard, who I admire so much as an actor, his role as Howard, the next door neighbor, I thought was very superfluous and not necessary at all in the context of the film. So before we turn it over to Double Take and talk a little bit more in depth about Will Haygood and book adaptations to films, tell us what you would recommend to our listeners about this film.
I would definitely recommend this as a film, particularly if you're a person that loves history. This is a great history lesson, and it's going to be a wonderful part of Ohio Goes to the Movies. Very thrilling that that it's going to be shown as one of the opening events of the Kappa Summer Movie Series, and a free screening, which is one of the great things about Ohio Goes to the Movies. There are free screenings around the state, because we want Ohioans in this year of America 250 Ohio to celebrate creativity, and one area where Ohio has been most creative has been in cinema.
That is true. So this is showing Friday, June 19th at the Ohio Theater. It is free, but it's also a ticketed event, so go to kappa.com and find out more about it. Thank you for joining me, David, for Cinema Classics.
I'm John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with